Hello, welcome to the January 31st, 2025 Club Cubase livestream. My name is Greg Undo, and I'm host of the livestream. If you've not attended a livestream before, how it works is you could ask questions in the live chat field or simply send questions in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. When asking questions, realize that my ability to keep up in real time with all questions may soon be eclipsed depending upon the number of questions that we have. We will go through and answer all the questions chronologically as asked. And when asking questions, realize that, again, my ability to answer them in real time. So we'll go through them chronologically. So if we could avoid asking the same question repeatedly, that would be appreciated. When asking questions, if you could specify which level of Cubase you're running. So is it Cubase LE, AI, Elements, Artist, or Pro? Which version number, like 12, 13, 14? And also which operating system. That information is helpful. We should have an index pinned to the top of the comments field several hours after the live stream, indicating with timestamps all of the topics that are discussed in today's live stream. And if you wanted to search for other topics, you could go to cubaseindex.com and search there. We want to thank Jan from Stockholm for creating that site. We have two people that serve as moderators, Agent K and Jazz Dude, and they're not Steinberg employees, but they do this to make it a better community experience, and we appreciate their efforts and energy. We'll also give special thanks to Jazz Dude for his work with the unofficial Cubase Nation Discord, which is a wonderful resource for the Steinberg user. So once again, my name is Greg Undo. I work for Yamaha Corporation of America. I primarily focus on Steinberg products, and I'm presenting from just outside of Washington, D.C. in Alexandria, Virginia. And if you're watching live, please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from. Today is the last live stream of the month, and starting at 3 p.m., so in about an hour and 53 minutes, we will migrate over to our Zoom social meetup. This is a great way to meet other people that are a part of the Club Cubase community. So we hope to see many new users and many familiar faces. So it's just a great way to meet other people that are on the live stream. And I posted the link, and I'll try to do that every 30 minutes or so as we get going. So with that, we will go ahead and begin. All right, so we have Tim K joining from Zeist in the Netherlands. His cat buddy is waving a paw. Hello to everyone and all the pets. We have Soundar checking in from India, Uno Momento from Finland. We have Stefan checking in from Sweden. 808 King just said we see Jazz Dude. And Kerwin Young, question from 808 King. Hello, Greg. Let's say on my synth folder, I want to have some tracks muted and others soloed. Is there a way program so I can hit the mute or solo button on the folder track? Thank you. So let's say if I have a number of instruments here, so let's go ahead and say I have this synth, I have this Rhodes patch, and let's say drums, and I want to put these, and let's put retro log. Okay, so we have all of these sounds layered. Let's put these into a folder. Let me see, I'm going to get my keyboard switched over. All right, so let's move these selected tracks to new folder. All right, it says I want to have some tracks muted and others soloed. Is there a way to program so I can hit the mute or solo button on the folder track? So if you want it to, mute or solo based on the folder track, but let's say if I have two of these muted, and now when I hit mute solo, those will still remain muted, or if I wanted to mute the other tracks, and then if we wanted to kind of treat all the tracks the same way globally, we have the global mute and global solo buttons that we could turn on and off here, but it looks like we could just kind of mute within the folder within the folder track, and that will mute the other tracks that weren't manually muted. So if you wanted to come here and just solo the tracks within the folder that are muted, you could. So if that is, now if we solo, we can see that if we take the mute off, that we can now just come over here and it says clear our mutes. And now that we could just kind of clear our mutes and solos, I could treat everything globally by soloing the folder or by muting different elements, and then just coming over here and soloing or muting other elements. So let me know if that's helpful for you, 808 King. Wonderful to see John Barry checking in from a sunny but cold English Riviera. We have just kind of cold rain here in Washington, D.C. today. Great to see Capital Razor on. And we see Vince Flyv joining from Winnipeg. Great to see you on. Thanks for joining us today. We have Jorge Oliveira just saying hello to everyone. Thanks for being a part of the live stream today. We see Jason Sykes from Barnsley, England. And we have Mikkel Nyqvist checking in from Sweden. All right, so we have Jorge just checking in from Portugal with the Cubase 13. It's probably the AI version that comes with the Yamaha analog mixer. We see Pro Wash DFW from Dallas, Mr. Dali 67 from Denmark. All right. Okay, so Ricky Terra just says maybe there is a bug during samples, drag and drop. So let me know what if it's dragging and dropping into, let's say I just want to come over here. If I wanted to drag and drop to like an audio file, if that seems to kind of work as expected, or if it's drag and drop into like a drum machine pad. So that seems to work. So, but let me know where you're seeing it. All right, so we see Ezra just asks, I don't have a studio monitor, I just have stereo speaker, the use of control room for me. So yeah, definitely could use the control room. So what the control room is going to allow you to do is to, when we have our mixer here, a lot of times we may build up a mix, and we have like our master fader set here, and a lot of people may use this when they're going into their monitoring path, whether it's a studio monitor or stereo speakers. But if you have this down too low and you go to export, your file is kind of trimmed down. The volume will be lower because the master fader is there. So what the control room, if you want to use it in a very simplistic manner, is just a monitor control that doesn't affect the gain structure of the mix. So if I want to come over here, let's play this. So we can see that we're going to have our mix here. So we can see kind of like our mix level, our gain is pretty healthy here. And now I could just control the monitoring volume without affecting the gain structure of the mix. So that's one of the very simple things that you could do. Also, if you wanted to dim different tracks, so say, okay, I wanted to hear the bass. We could click on the L and there's a listen dim. So I could bring the volume of this particular track louder. So if I come over here and select the kick drum and click on the L or snare, we click on the L button, all the other tracks will dim in comparison. And if I have like this snare going to a reverb track, and I wanted to just hear the reverb by itself, We could just click on L without hearing the source tracks. So there's useful ways for isolating reverbs, for having, you know, a separate monitoring path that doesn't affect the gain structure of the mix. So there's great uses of the control room, even if you're just using a typical, you know, stereo speakers. All right, so we see Ricky Terra just says also drum track consumption of CPU is high without loading kits. All right, so let's do a new project here. We'll create empty. Okay, so let's open up my performance, my audio performance monitor. Okay, so I'm going to open up a drum track. So the CPU performance is high without loading kits. So I'm going to add a drum track here. So it doesn't seem like it made a significant difference, but let's disable. So it seems pretty similar, but let me know if you're getting different results with that. All right, so wonderful to see JVI on. So hoping everyone is well. We have Recyclop checking in from Finland. All right, so Ricky Terra just says, sorry, let me just. Okay, sorry, my chat field jumped. It says startup is also slowed down from the initial release. So, you know, if startup is slowed down, it could be often attributed to plugins that will often be kind of checking licensing in the background. So if you've added plugins, then some of those aspects could be, you know, certain plugins will do a quick check for their licensing scheme. And that could cause Cubase to take longer to load. So if you've added more keyboards and, you know, more plugins, then that could cause a longer startup time. Depending, some plugin companies are more notorious for looking for licensing than others. Sound Keys asks, is there a dedicated MIDI keyboard from Yamaha for Cubase? So currently Yamaha doesn't make any dedicated MIDI controllers, but lots of people will use like the Yamaha, I think the CK series or the Montage. A lot of people will use that in conjunction with Cubase, but they have their own internal sounds. But Yamaha currently doesn't manufacture just a dedicated controller keyboard. JVI is just sending apologies for having missed a few Hangouts. It's a really big project at the moment. Well, it's great to have a project, and we're glad that you're back. And it's good to be busy. All right, so we see, hey Greg, can we have a full screen option in the next update? There's an unnecessary title bar or project bar. So, you know, I'm not sure if you're running Windows or Mac. So if we come here, so sometimes when there's kind of a new, like a Windows multi-window client standard that Microsoft is doing. So you may notice that when you go to a web browser and you alt tab, if you have multiple tabs, each of those is a separate window. So it could be that you could have a floating window that you couldn't navigate without this space at the top. But I think if we go to Mac, if we come over here to the dock and menu bar, that you could automatically hide and show. So sometimes it's at the OS level. So now if I wanted to, let's see if we can maximize that. So now the menus will appear. So sometimes it's dictated a bit by operating system conventions. but I'll pass along the feedback regardless. Wonderful to see Michael Graybill from Dallas, and great to have Spa Dogs back. I believe he's from Canada. So, yep, I was right. Oh, yeah, from Canada. So I believe he's in Ontario, if my memory serves correct. Wonderful to see you back. Thanks for joining us. And we see John Costigan from Kenosha, Wisconsin. All right, so we see Ricky Terra just says drag and drop to new track. Okay, so let's say I'll remove this track. So let me just enable. So let's say if I will remove this particular track. So let me go to Mediabay, and if I want to just drag over, let's say, some audio files. If I want to drag over a virtual instrument track, so let's say, okay, I want to come here. I want a Halotron Sonic in between. If I want to load up, let's say, a track preset, so let's come over here to presets, to track presets, audio. So I want that to be the second. We can now load up the track preset with all of its effects, EQs, and channel strip intact. So if I want to go to, like the drum machine track, and I want that to be at the top, just drag and drop, and now we could have that particular drum machine right there. So it seems like everything is kind of working as expected for me, but let me know if if it's a specific type that you're running into, a specific type of media that you're running into drag and drop, but that all seemed to be what I would expect. All right, Michael Pierce is joining us from Grand Chapel Studios in England. Just hoping that everyone is safe and has had a great week. All right, Rick France asks, I'm using Cubase 14 Pro on MacBook 15.3 OS, and I have a MIDI track in a project. Cubase consistently crashes when I try to remove an empty MIDI track, regardless of the method used to remove. It says, is there a project rebuild process somewhere to correct this type of error? All right, so I'll just add an empty MIDI track. Okay, and I will just set the output to like a hardware device. All right, so we have that MIDI track. It's going out to my UR24C. So let's say if I want to remove it, I could remove the selected track, so I don't have any issues with that. It would be interesting to know, Rick, if it was always going to a particular MIDI port or MIDI channel. So maybe there's an issue with that particular driver. Now, if you asked about kind of rebuilding a project, what you could do is just come over here, go to your file menu, and you see the import, and then we could say, let's import tracks from project, and then you could select the particular project and import the tracks accordingly. So let's say if I want to come here, so at this point I could just say, okay, let's take this particular project, and now you could choose to import all of the tracks and exclude that one particular empty MIDI track if you want, and then resave it. So you could just do a select all and say this is the MIDI track that's problematic, deselect that, and then you could make sure that you have events and parts checked, and then you should be able to kind of reload that particular project in as well in kind of a recovery mode. So it will allow you to kind of rebuild the project. All right, always great to see Razel Zamini checking in from Denmark. All right, Spa Dogs is just asking, I'm unable to get sound when using Spectralayers ARA on a surround sound track. Works fine with stereo And on the standalone, the issues with ARA, and am I missing something? All right, so let me see. I may have a 5.1 track that I could import. So let me see if we can get some sound. I don't obviously have 5.1 monitoring, but let me remove these tracks. Let me add a 5.1 output bus. Okay, and let me just try to import. Okay, so let's say I think it's all right. So I'm not sure if this is really a 5.1. Let's just see if we get any audio to play back. Okay, so let me just hide my input channels here. All right, let me just check to see if I. Let me just look one more time, make sure I don't have. Check my VST connections. All right, so let's see what happens. So I may not be able to get 5.1 to play back, but let's see if we run this as an ARA extension, what it would do. Yeah, so I haven't really run myself Spectralayers in 5.1. I have it set up on my personal computer for 5.1, so I could do some testing. If you want to email me, I'd be happy to kind of test it over the weekend. So to see if ARA kind of functions in 5.1, but I could do that. But I'll make a note to try that over the weekend. Sorry about that, Spa Dogs. All right, so we have Roland stuff checking in from Sussex. And we see Brian Sawyer from Bealville, North Carolina. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so Mikhail asks, folders, icons, and Mediabay turn white when I'm browsing around in my sample pack folders, and I can't see files. If I switch folder to go back to a white folder, start after 14 Pro. All right, so let's take a look at Mediabay. Okay. So browsing back in my sample pack folders, let's say, okay, so let's say we want to go to loop set here. All right, and let me just switch my monitoring path back. Okay. All right, so say, okay, so it says folders, icons, and Mediabay turn white when I'm browsing around. All right, so I guess this is the white that we hear. Let me just put this in autoplay. Okay, browsing around my sample pack folders, and I can't see files. If I switch folder and go back to the white folder, started after Cubase 14 Pro. So let's say if I'm here and I'm looking at, let's say, laser beams. So just look at this. Okay, so since white one, I'm browsing my sample pack folders. I can't see the files. If I switch folder and go back to a white folder, started after 14. All right, so let's say if I come here, I could see, let's say, Hard Knocks, I think is loops. So as soon as we so I'm not sure if you're doing it into full scale Mediabay here. So browsing on a sample, I can't see files if I switch folder and go back to a white folder. Let me just look on the Mediabay here. So go home, let's get to our loops. So let's say if I have all right, so I can't see files. I switch folder and go back to white folder. So if I just kind of jump back here, so I'm not sure. Let's take a look at it in maybe the browser. So go to a file browser to VST Sound. So let's say if I'm in Bloom, and I come over here, let's say to audio files. Okay, so we see that this is white. So let's say if I jump here. So, but let me know if it's in the right zone Mediabay or the full Mediabay that you access from hitting F5. But yeah, so if you could let me know that, that'd be great. Sorry for if I misunderstood. All right, so we have Marty J. Brown from San Antonio, Texas. I'm going to be there in about 2 weeks. So Marty J. Brown asks, hey Greg, is there a way to highlight a selection of audio events and hit one button to simultaneously fade in and fade out or crossfade based on whatever is needed for the audio events? All right. So let's say I have a number of audio tracks here. I'll just revert this quickly. All right, so say if I want to take a number, like let's say if I have like these selected, and if I hit A, the A key, that would be like adjust to range. That will automatically do kind of like if the end of the event is selected, that will do a fade out. If I have the beginning of the events selected, you can hit the letter A, like adjust fades to range for fade in. If we have the middle selected here, I could just do and hit A, it'll do fade in and fade out between all those different sections as needed. So try the A key, but with the range tool, make sure that you have, if you have the ending selected here for all these tracks, and we're touching on the end, A will do a fade out. If we're touching the beginning, it'll do a fade in. If we have the middle selected, it'll do a fade in and a fade out just by hitting the letter A. And if you need to do like a crossfade, so let's say if I split all of those events and I just come here, I could hit X, and that will do a crossfade between all of the events. So if you need to do a crossfade, just simply hit the letter X, or with the range tool, you could hit the letter A to adjust the fades to range. So let me know if that's helpful for you, Marty. John Barry just says that he just used import tracks from a project, an old corrupt project that would not save. It seems to have worked and got me out of a hole. And he says, with all mixer settings and effects too. All right, and we have Dwight Cunningham checking in from the Bahamas. Oh, he sounds like such a great place to be when I'm doing a live stream. Thanks for joining us. So wonderful to see Gareth on from Bilbao, Spain. All right, 808 King asks, Greg, what is switch time base between musical and linear? Thanks. Okay, so let's do a new project here. So let's say we have, so when something is in, like the track is in linear time base, so let's come over, I'll just put in some MIDI information here. And it'll kind of work the same for audio. Okay, so let's say I put this event in. Now our tracks have kind of two different time base options. The default time base is probably going to be set to musical. So if I play this MIDI event here, and now when I change the events, these MIDI notes will actually occur. And if we change, where this really matters is when we change tempo, because when we change tempo and the track is in musical mode, those positions will stay at the same bar and beat position. So if I come and we're playing this, I slow the tempo down, we're not going to see these shift because they're going to be at the same bar and beat position. So slow the tempo down. So let's say now I go back to our original tempo of 120. So everything is maintained. Now when it's in linear mode, what happens is these events stay at their time position. So I'm going to add a ruler track. All right, so we see that this is, we have measure 9. We look at our seconds. This will be roughly 16 seconds or whatever. So now when I adjust, the track is in linear mode, and I adjust the tempo, we'll notice that the tracks, they look like they're getting shorter by the bar and beat, but they're actually playing at the same time position. So when we look at the time, this is going to be a constant, but the bars and beats. So it really matters for your events whether they are staying to the bar and beat position, which is what musical mode is, or they stay at their time position, which is what linear mode is. So it's often when you switch something, that's when you switch the tempo, that's when you could run into differences. So if you wanted your music to slow down, but let's say you had a musical cue, like a cymbal crash that was always lined with a visual element, you may want that cymbal to be on a linear track because you want that to always be lined to that visual element, and you may not want that to speed up and slow down if you do tempo changes for the music part. All right, we see Jay from Secret Studios says, "Hi Greg, would you be so kind as to request the team to allow unlocking of left and right docks windows so we can move them to other monitors? Perhaps even be able to save as a configuration." So I'll mention that. We can, I think that some of the aspects, like if you wanted the control room, so a lot of people always want it. There's some people where the control room that they want to be able to move that to a separate screen, or the mix console, or if you come over here to your Mediabay. So we could have the Mediabay as a separate window. If we wanted to go to your VST rack, you could just come over here and go to your VST instruments. So there's a lot of these windows that are in the right zone here. So if you wanted to just have your metering, we could, in the control room, have your metering tab. So a lot of these elements of the VST instrument rack, the Mediabay, the control room, and metering can all be kind of put onto different screens independently. Already the inspector, those are kind of going to be kind of fixed to the left zone, to the bottom zone. We can obviously click on the little up arrow to move that to a separate screen as well. But I'll pass it along as a feature request to be able to move the inspector areas over. But a lot of the zones, you could already kind of do it. All right, Ashby Unlimited says, "Hello, great question. I tried to bounce an instrument track, but the option was grayed out. Can you not bounce MIDI instrument tracks? If not, is there any way I could get the same result?" All right, so say I have this particular MIDI track here. So We have our MIDI going out to our virtual instrument. So I'm going to remove this ruler track. All right, so usually the bounce selection for audio is going to, the bounce is going to be for audio. So if I come over here and let's just drag like an audio file in. So now that I have an audio file selected, I could go to audio and bounce selection. But if it was going to be for MIDI, I would just come over here and go to my edit, and I would choose render in place. So you want to make sure that either the event or the track is selected. And then when you go to render in place, you could just come over here. If you want to take your virtual instrument track and turn it into audio, we can now just come right over here and render it in place and just do it like that. So if you come over here and select the track and you're like, okay, I want to bounce, and you see the bounce, that's going to be strictly for audio events. So once an audio track and an audio event is selected, that's what the bounce selection will become available. But for MIDI tracks, what you want to do instead is to just go to your edit menu to render in place. And then you could just render just like that. So let me know if that's helpful. All right, you see Gareth says, hope NAMM was fruitful for you. So it's a great show. Got to see so many wonderful friends. All right, so we see just a comment. Backbone is currently free with any paid purchase at Plugin Boutique. That's good to know. All right, so we see Ricky Tara is having problems with the performance, dragging files over, running 32 gigs of RAM and an i7. Yeah, but let me know if I was doing anything differently than you. All right, so we see from Ricky Tara, says drag and dropping to desired lanes makes it drop either top or bottom of the project. So I think that most of the time, let's give it a try with lanes. Let's say I take this. So I just dragged it over to a lane. I probably have a preference set here for delete overlaps. Let me just turn that off. So let's say we have different, I want to take these to different lanes. So let me just check that preference one more time. Let me hit apply. So it looks like we could just drag and drop very easily to lanes. And if you want to, drag it, let's say we don't have lanes here. If I wanted to put it, let's say if I add a few audio tracks, if I double click, it will go to the bottom, or if I drag it, we see this green line, and then with the green line, I could place it wherever you want. So now I could just come over here and say I want it between these two tracks, and you could just drag like so. So check, just also make sure, like, if you have the preference editing, make sure like delete overlaps is turned off or unchecked when you're doing that type of editing, if you see the parts disappearing. See Rick just says thanks, import to repair should work. All right, so we see Nick just checking in. It says his eldest son is in the hospital. We hope everything is well and he has a quick recovery. Thanks for popping in. Everyone will send our well wishes to Nick and his family. All right, so we see Rick from Bratman Studios. Great to see you at NAMM last week. Last night I tried to paste a reverb to multi-tracks in the mixer. I could drag and drop from one channel to the next, but couldn't drag and drop to all selected channels. Is there a key command? All right, so let's add, just add some tracks here. All right, so if you want to do it with, all right, so let's go over here to our mixer. So if I wanted to put it as a insert, I could just come over here. Let's enable Q-Link. So if I want to put the same reverb across multiple channels, I could come right over here and say, okay, let's put in our Revelation reverb. And that will now, if I did everything right, will automatically be placed across multiple channels. I could also just select multiple channels. And if I wanted to add a send, I could just kind of right click here and say add effect send to selected tracks. We'll make it our Revelation reverb. And now that all those tracks were selected, we can see our reverb send would be just kind of turned on. And I could select these tracks, and if I still have the Q-Link, I could turn on and off the reverb. I could set the amount of the send for the reverb as well. So you could do it, using the Q-Link, and you could activate Q-Link by holding down Alt or Option plus Shift, and that could turn on or disable Q-Link as needed, or just simply turn the icon on. So Rick France just asked, hi Greg, what's the configuration of your Mac? Looking for a new Mac, something that can handle 100 orchestral instruments like Spitfire, BBC, or Cinematics instrument. So I'm getting a new Mac in February. I've had this one like 2.5 years, and my lease is up on this is like my corporate computer, but this Mac is an M1 Max with 64 gigs of RAM. It hasn't really, balked at anything that I've thrown at it. It seemed to handle, so I think you get like great performance with the new M series Macs. All right, and wonderful to see Martin checking in from Germany. All right, Ricky Terra asks, is there any way to copy paste the plugin chain of offline direct processing F7 of insert of channel track, because the other way works but doesn't this way? So I'm not sure if we can. Let's take a look, give it a shot. So let's come over here to our direct offline processing. Let me just add a couple plugins. All right, so let's come over here and drag these down. Let's make a preset. So we'll call this okay. All right, here, just let me. Yeah, so I think it's more kind of intended to go, we could take a I think we could take a, like our plugin chain that we have here. And drag these in. Because I think, like, the intention is, once something has been applied, people would start maybe with an effect processing chain, and if they're running out of CPU power, that they could just simply drag and drop into the offline processor to do all of the editing to save on CPU. So I think the design intention was that, if you have a lot of processing going on a particular track, that you could free up the processing by dragging it over to the offline processing. So I don't think most people, once they're offline process, would take that to add CPU resources on tracks. But I'll pass it along as a feature request regardless. But I think that's kind of the design intention, is to alleviate CPU usage. All right, Marty J. Brown asks, hey Greg, I have a hotkey for play from song start, but also a setting for play from range selection. When a range is selected, it overrides the song start. Is there a way to bypass this? Okay, so let's say I have my range set here. So there are some, so say I have this, and it could depend if you get to your transport, if you're in 13 or 14, there are different start modes. So here we could say play from selection or cycle start. So when I play, it's going to play from that area. So if my cursor is here, it'll just play from that selection start. So if you go to your transport menu, again, start mode, you can say, start from the cursor position. So if I'm hit the period key to go back to the beginning, it will now just kind of play, from wherever the cursor is. So check your transport to start mode, and you may have start selection, start from selection or cycle start. So if we come here, I can say, okay, if I select this particular event with that preference, it would automatically go to start playing from the beginning of the selected event. So again, we just come here, start mode. And then now that my playhead is here, but this is selected, I hit play. If this event is selected, it'll start playing from there. If there is a range selected, that would take priority over an event selection. So check transport and your start mode. All right, I'm going to paste the Zoom meetup one more time. Get started in about an hour. All right, hang on. Lost my, all right, my chat field jumped on me. All right, so you see Yoshi Piano 145 says, is it possible to make the automation lines thicker, especially in the MIDI editor? All right, so let me just come over here. Okay, let me just... Okay, so let me just Okay, so let's say I want to do like MIDI CC1. All right, so I'm not sure if there's a way to change. All right, just let me to make the automation line sticker. But let's take a look into preferences and see if there's anything. Yeah, I don't think there's any particular preference to change kind of the thickness of the lines. Sorry about that. All right, Michael Pierce has a quick question. Says, when upgrading to new version of Cubase, you gain 3 licenses for the new version. You do still keep the 3 licenses for the previous version? No. So yeah, what it is if you have like, Cubase 13, you upgrade to Cubase 14. The Cubase 14 license works for Cubase 13 and works for Cubase 12. And if you're on the eLicenser software, which the last version of the eLicenser software was version 11, the eLicenser could open up all the way back to Cubase SX1 in any earlier version. So while it may turn it into like a Cubase 14 license, the Cubase 14 license can run, serves as a license for Cubase 13 or Cubase 12. All right, we have Michael Marshall joining from Somerset in the UK. All right, Yoshi Piano says, when using VST Connect Pro, it always defaults to not use encryption. Is there a way to change that? All right, so let's say if we're doing VST Connect Pro. All right, says it. So let me know if it is like where you notice the encryption. So I'm not sure if I don't have another computer currently connected. But let me know, Yoshi, where the encryption defaults to not use encryption. So yeah, I think that this is going to be like a peer-to-peer network. So I'm not sure if it's, if those are kind of the default settings for it to work. And it may not need as you may not default to encryption because it is a peer-to-peer network. All right, Marty J. Brown says, hey Greg, is there a way to open the mix console with one button? So if you hit the F3 key on your computer keyboard, that will open up the button right there. So that'll open up the mix console for you. Next question, can the mix console show EQ and compressor knobs like an SSL console? So when you go, let's say, to your the channel strip, so as soon as you kind of pop over here and you can see the knobs right there for the compressor. So once you kind of pop over here, and this had changed in 13, the interface for the channel strips So this way, when it's activated, you could just click once, and then you could see the knobs, and click again, and that will. So whatever you click on will disappear, so you don't have 100 unnecessary open windows. And if you wanted to, change, let's say if you're in the channel editor, and let's say we go to like the EQ here, and we go to the settings, you could say, so click here in the settings, we could say show controls as knobs. And now when we are even in like our mix console over here and we open this up, we can see that once that setting is set, that when we pop out here that we see the knobs as opposed to the sliders. And if we come over to our channel strip, again, I could just activate just all from right here and see everything as knobs. All right, Gareth is reminding everyone to activate the like button, and he says he's not supposed to share this. I get a little tickle every time you hit the like button. All right, so Mikhail has a clarification on the Mediabay. So he's just saying, let me just come over here. Let me just. All right, so he's saying that folders are yellow. When I select a folder, it turns white. If I go back to a white folder, I see no files. Gets back if I rescan hard disks. So, it could be that, that maybe the Mediabay hasn't completed the full scan in your system, because sometimes there could be a preference. If you go to Mediabay where it's only scanning folder when Mediabay is open, so if that preference is turned on, it may not get a full scan. You open it up and it may start to scan once the Mediabay is open, but it could perhaps never complete its scan, and that's why you see the different colors. And if you said it works in Cubase 13 Pro, it could be that the Cubase 13 Pro has done the full scan already. All right, so you see that Nixon's waiting for an ECG, but is stable, so that's good news. We're all sending positive vibes his way. All right, Alan is asking, is it possible to nudge the left and right loop locators, left or right? I could do it for the whole loop, but not the left-right endpoints. Can this be done with a macro? Okay, so this is another question that had come up about, so we'll get two questions since they're related. So someone had wanted to nudge the loop points here. And to do that, there is a key command. So if we come over here, let's get to your key commands. And I think it's loop range left and loop range right. So this isn't Alan's question, but it was a question that was mailed in. And I think I've set those up on my MIDI remote. So if I come over here to my MIDI remote, now let me just get it to. So now I could take this loop and move the entire loop over, but what Alan wants to do is to take just like the left or right locator and move that. So let's take a look. So this may be kind of like a two-step process, but it looks like we can let's say apply the mapping. So if we kind of nudge, let's say our timeline, and we could do this using like command or control plus the plus sign. And now I could move the right locator to the playhead position. So if you move this, and then there's a key command that you can move that. So it might be a two-step process, but you could move the left and right locators to the cursor position. So, but you may have to move the cursor independently. So let me know if that's helpful for you, Alan. All right, great to see Tim Weinheimer on. Just says, Greg, thanks for all the help. So you're welcome. All right, so you see Achilles says, hello, Cubase 14 Pro. Is there a way to select multiple volume automations of a track between locators with a command? Okay, so let me just come over here. I'm just going to draw in some automation here quickly. So we have automation before and after. Okay, so let's say I'm going to close. Let's say I'll have this open. I'm going to select these particular tracks, just holding Control or Command. And I don't think there's one in here that specifies. So let's go to our project logical editor. And let's say we want to select, and we'll say our container type is going to be a track. Or maybe we'll just start off with select media type. Let's choose automation. Sorry, media type is equal to automation. And let's say the property is set to the parent object is selected. And let's say, okay, so the parent object is selected, and we want to choose the position between left and right locators. So we'll say inside cycle. So now we'll come over here, apply. So now we see only the automation points between the left and right channels on the automation between the left and right locators is selected. Now we could also, if we wanted to switch this to transform, we could then say trim, we'll say decrement by 1 dB. So now I could select these particular tracks, and I want to now just trim the automation by 1 dB. So we could decrement, and let's choose to increment. So now it's only going to raise those particular automation values. So you could, again, if you want to select, you could just choose, okay, I want to select media is equal to automation. I want to do that on when the parent object is selected, so the track is selected, so I don't necessarily have to have that open. So now I could just say, let's select all that automation, and then if you wanted to even just come over here and increment or decrement using your mouse scroll wheel in the info line, you could do that. All right. All right, wonderful to see Recyclop from Finland, and also Val checking in from Vienna. See, Marty J. Brown says that helped. Thank you so much, Greg. All right, so we see from Yoshi Piano, is it possible to scale the text bigger in Groove Agent? I really need to squint my eyes to what I'm doing, and sizing the window doesn't help. So if you have, something like, let's say, Groove Agent open, so it's not, I don't think it's scalable, but let's say if we just come over here, let's add a Groove Agent SE. So it could be depending upon your screen resolution. So let's say if I come over, we just open this up. So I'm running currently at a 1920 by 1080. I think that's pretty comfortable for text. But if you change, I don't think we could kind of scroll for the browser area, but the actual plugin itself may not scale. But, so depending on what resolution you're running, so if we come over, we could say, let's adjust, if we go to our system preferences, and let's say we adjust our resolution down. Now, if we look at this, Groove Agent will be bigger. So depending upon your screen resolution, that can make a difference for you. All right, so we see from Marty J. Brown, hey Greg, is there a way to have a global nudge value so I don't have to change the timeline 2 minutes and seconds every time? So if we wanted to nudge events, so let's say right now often when we go to nudge events, it will follow the timeline. So right now I have this set to grid and to the beat. All right, so now when I come over here and I hold down the control or command key and hit my left and right arrow, we're going to nudge it by beat. Okay, so, all right, so let's say you don't want to change to minutes. What we could have, you may have to right click and then you'll see nudge. So now what we want to do is that we see our nudge value here and we see link to grid. So let's say I always want to nudge by like 10 milliseconds or something like that. So I'm going to say I don't want it to link to grid. I want my nudge to be in, so we'll just say in seconds. And I want the grid here, let's say, so I'm going to uncheck that. And we're going to say, okay, we have, so now we're seeing seconds, and I can say I want this to always nudge, even though my primary time display is set to bars and beats. Now when I nudge, it's going to nudge it by 10 milliseconds. So let me add a ruler track below so that we could see. All right, and we're going to set this 2 seconds. All right, so as we zoom in, now I'm going to nudge this particular event, and it's nudging it over by 10 milliseconds as opposed to a rhythmic value. So if once you open up the nudge panel, and you could right click to make sure that the nudge palette is there, and you want to uncheck link to grid, and then you could set a completely independent time format for your nudging. All right, so we have forward thinking, checking in from mail from Wales. All right. All right, so you see Ashby Unlimited says bounce audio render MIDI in place. Perfect. Thank you, Greg. All right. All right, so Val's first CD was Falco Live. All right, wonderful to see Michael Teams from Weatherford, Texas, with the virtual ice cream distribution will begin. All right, great to see Daniela, Da Vinci Girl from Bochum, Germany. All right, so we see Forward Thinking saying recently my hard drive got fried and I lost all my Cubase stuff and have had to start again from scratch. Do you have any tips I can back up settings in Cubase for the future? So what I always do is just come over and go to your edit menu and go to your profile manager and just simply back up your profile. So you could export a profile, email it to yourself, put it on OneDrive, Google Drive, and then you could just simply import all the settings with all your preferences, your user-created presets, your macros, key commands, global workspaces. All those settings will be preserved for you. All right. Thanks for all the great questions. All right, so we see Rick France says, thanks, Greg. And Bratman Studios says, yes, remember the Q link for adding the effects across channel. All right, Jay from Secret Studios says, is there a Zoom meeting today or is it pushed until next month? So we're going to do it today. So starting in about 38 minutes or so. All right, wonderful to see Best Green Jesus from San Diego joining us. All right, my chat field just jumped. I see that Pablo is on. It's always wonderful. All right, so Da Vinci Girl says, Greg, today I saw a video in German language about a new instrument for Halotron. In this video, it really sounds ugly, not realistic for the information price, close to 80 euros. Was ready to... All right, let's see if there's much against competitors. Do you have an example how to bring the guitar sounding realistic? So I think that's Guitar Artifacts, and I think it's kind of intended to not... I haven't had a chance to kind of play with the library yet. I could see if I could get a copy and show it on Tuesday, but I haven't. I just saw it was announced this morning, and they don't send me copies of instruments because they're done by third-party companies, and we sell it through our marketplace. Okay. So I just listened to it for like 30 seconds on my phone this morning at like 5 in the morning. Not trying to wake my cat up. Michael Teams wants everyone to whack the like button. Let's see, Michael Pierce was pondering the licensing in Traffic Jam and his life choices at the same time. All right, so Peter asks, greetings. Upon installation, the VC Mate will create 32 MIDI ports. I've run into the MMC SS priority cannot be set on a few occasions. Your thoughts? Yeah. So I'm not sure why it would need. I worked with it once with a composer friend who was getting it and couldn't get it figured out. So I was helping my friend Mark with it, but it seems, I'm not sure if it actually needs 32 ports, so I'm not sure if there is a way to scale the MIDI ports, if that's a possibility. I could do some more research on it if you want to send me an email reminder. All right, so we have Lewis from I think Massachusetts, no questions for me today. Just want to acknowledge the awesome job that Greg does for us every week. Made a jump from Logic Pro to Cubase 14 and never looked back. All right, well, thank you for the kind words. I'll copy and paste that into my monthly report. All right, so wonderful to see Pablo from Galicia, España. Everyone's favorite drummer of Hot Mess. So we have all the Hot Mess members on today. All right. So we have the Network Mystery. Says, hi there. First time I watched a Cubase stream in over 4 years, studying in conservatory in Appleton, Wisconsin. One of our tech support guys was from Appleton, Wisconsin, a long time ago. All right, so we see Pablo says, hi Greg, have you received my email? So I haven't gotten one in a while, but let me know if you didn't get the license. I could chase it down again. I kind of put in a request so I don't necessarily get copied when they come or are distributed. All right, Asterix Korg Studio asks, how to make label under slider on remote control. All right, so let's say, just add a quick remote control device here. Okay, so let's say we have MIDI remote going on here. So let's create a label box. So let me just come over. So we see that we have this. So let's see if we do. All right, we'll just make this larger so you can see if there's. I know that there's some things that are just kind of visual. Let me just do a different device here real quick. Okay, so I'll just make a new device and see if we can get a label. Okay, so let's say if we have fader like this, so let's say if we have so I'm not sure if there's a way to kind of label, like, usually like it will get kind of labeled, with the function that's assigned to it. So if I come over here to like my focus quick controls, as soon as I assign that particular function, then we see the function name. So if I come over here and just say, okay, I want to assign like my Q send 1 level, that we see kind of like the icon automatically appear. But let me know if there's, if you, I'll do some more research in it. If you want to email me at clubcubase@steinberg.de to see if I can get a custom label, but it usually just kind of indicates the function that that particular object is doing. All right, New Cheer You Rush asks, hi Greg, I have a question. How can I export stems? I don't want them to have the same length. I want each track to have its own unique length. All right, so let's take a look. So I think we could do a bounce render in place or a bounce selection. So let's come over here. Okay, so let's say we have something along the lines of this. So if I wanted to maintain kind of their unique lengths, I could come over here, let's select the events, and then, so let's say we have multiple events here, we could go to Edit, to Render in Place, we'll go to our render settings. I could make these as one event. So now when we render, we'll take these multiply copied events, and let me not mix it down. Sorry about that, my error. So I don't want to mix down. So we'll say render. Then you could just render just like that. So just do, a quick render in place, and then you could just see all the files just rendered there, even if you had kind of multiple clips within the project. So the render in place should do that for you. All right, Asterisk Cork Studio says thanks for helping people on Cubase. All right, Pablo's requesting a soup recipe from Michael Pierce. All right, Pablo asks, if I use the arrangement track, how do I render the result? Should I flatten the chain? If I have the arrangement track on, the result is not rendered. So you will need to, if you have the arranger track and you want to render with the arrangement track, is you will need to flatten the chain. So just come here, I'll open one up. All right, so once we have this activated and we go to export, we do our export audio mix down. You may get a message that once that this is active, that you may have to, I'll just try it. So it looks like it will do kind of, if you want the arrangement track to kind of take effect, you would have to kind of render the, to flatten the arranger track here. So before rendering. So. All right, and Pablo's saying that Nashville is a really great drum library. All right, so Michael Pierce is sneaking off to get a garlic soup recipe. All right. Okay, just reading through comments. All right, Yoshi Piano 145 just says, what's the Zoom meeting about? So usually it's just kind of a social, so people could meet and get to know each other, and other people could talk besides me. So it's really more of a social interaction. And you can't ask more questions there. So Marty J. Brown says, yes, that helped. Thank you so much, Greg. So. All right, and Yoshi Piano 145 asks, is the Zoom something frequent? So we usually do it the last Club Cubase of the month. And it usually goes for 2-3 hours. So until my family says you have to come up and make dinner. All right, so we have the artist known as Love saying hi from Brazil. Pablo saying logic is not logical. Gareth saying new Hot Mess album will be coming later this year, so looking forward to playing bass on it. All right, Recycle asks, is there built-in tools in Cubase to measure and calibrate monitoring systems? Already have measurement mic, just missing the software. So there isn't like a kind of room calibration. We could do a lot with metering, with like the supervision. So, if you wanted to see what Cubase is outputting, but we don't have a way necessarily to... so if I wanted to come over here, we could just say, okay, let's open supervision, and this shows us everything that is kind of happening in the project, what goes out of Cubase, but there isn't a way built into Cubase where you have a measurement mic and it will do the room calibration and fix different EQ deficiencies in your monitoring environment. Something like SonarWorks would do that, but it's nothing that's really included within Cubase. All right, Zach Pope asks, how can I transpose a flute track up an octave in Cubase for live playback with another MIDI track so both instruments are in comfortable range without altering the MIDI notes in the piano roll? All right, so there's a couple ways of doing that. So let's add 2 instrument tracks. So let me just add different instruments. Okay, so say I want to have a flute part. So let's come over to Iconic Sketch. All right, so let's say we have flute part here, so we go to play. Make sure you have. But if you want to transpose it, you could go to just a couple different areas. One is just to go to the MIDI modifiers. Just check my. Output monitoring phase. It should be. All right, so, but if you go to the MIDI modifiers tab right here, you can just look, and let me just, okay, so say I'm just playing this, we will now come over to our MIDI modifiers and we can just choose transpose. So I'm going to play. So we can take it out of range. So let's say we're playing this note at the original pitch. And then I could just say, okay, let's make it 12. Kind of playing the same pitch here. So just use the MIDI modifiers there. All right, Walter Till says, is there a way to reach the Q-Link button from the project window? So, you know, the same functions. So let's say if I come over here and I just have a number of, like, you know, audio tracks going on. So let's say, okay, let's add some audio tracks. So if I just want to come over here and, you know, do... So if I have these selected, I'm going to hold down the Alt-Shift key. So let's say I'm in a, you know, my chord pads here, and I want to adjust just the fader here. Let's go back to the MIDI modifiers. I can see that all of these tracks, just by holding down Alt or Option plus the Shift key, will automatically take effect, whether these are the project mixer is open or not. So whatever is selected, Alt or Option plus Shift, make your adjustments. So if I want to come over here, let's say, okay, now I want to adjust my panning. I could make my adjustments, and those would all reflect right there. See, Pablo is spectralayering right now. Okay. Pablo is saying, I need more projects, so I'm glad to take any copyright material that YouTube won't ding me on. All right, Nuno asks, hello, I'm starting out in Cubase Artist 14. Very basic question. What is the keyboard shortcut to go to the start of one track play? So if you want to have like an event that is, that plays, like that starts playing from this specific event. So let's come over here. So if I come here, I could just select this, and then if I wanted to, you know, you could hit Alt or Option plus the letter P. So So you say, okay, I want to go here. I can just say Alt P, and we could put that into a cycle mode if you want as well. So if you just select the event and go to Alt P, you could just loop that and play right from that particular event. Alter Option plus P. So try Alter Option plus P. That will put it in the loop, and you could hit the slash key on your numeric keypad to turn the loop on and off. And Nuno's checking in from Portugal. Thanks for joining us. And we see Gerald Ely from Martinez, California. All right, so you see Nuno's just asking if I have the new Artifact guitar plugin. So I don't have it yet. I'll see if I could have it for Tuesday. All right, great to see Neil Conway from Oregon, if memory serves me correctly. Let's see, Graham Witcher's looking for the new Hot Mess album. I am too. All right, so Neil Conway says he retired again, so he's back to being a composer and a part-time AI graphics programmer. Congratulations on your retirement. Okay, reading through different questions. All right, Da Vinci Girl says, I have another problem for my 80s collection. I have lots of productions that need original Mellotron sound, and the best is the Mtron from GeForce. Their service did write me. They try since version 3. You know, so one thing that you could check out with the Mellotron is there's quite a good version of it inside of Halion. So if we go to Halion 7, we could just come over. Let's get to your single instrument. It's called Halotron. So if we want to come over, oh, sorry, wrong one. Yeah, Halotron here. So So if you want kind of the classic Mellotron strings, or the brass or the flutes. So check out that. It's a great instrument to work with. All right, now I know we have some questions we should get to for a lot that were sent in advance. So let me get to those. All right, so a question. When mixing, I never use send panning or experiment with it. Could you give us some basic examples when and how to use send panning? Okay. Just look for a quick project I was thinking of. Okay, so often if you have like two instruments where they're going to be panned, like maybe two guitars, this is kind of a typical use of this. So let's say
first met, that was a long, long time ago.
So let's say we have maybe piano, and let's say we have guitar. All right, so what we could do is I want to add a effect send to the piano and the guitar. So let's go ahead, and I think there may be some effects on here already. So let's say our guitar is dry now. All right, so if we wanted to now take like the guitar part here, and I want to add, let's say, to both these tracks, the guitar and the piano, let's add an effect send to selected tracks. So we're going to put a revelation reverb on. So now what I want to do is we'll start with the guitar, and I want the guitar to be panned, let's say all the way to the left. And now what I could do is when we go to our channel settings, we could go to our panning, and I could take this particular send for the guitar. So we're going to say, okay, let's take our revelation, and as we play, we can now pan the reverb for the guitar in the other channel. So let's say, so this way the guitar can be panned in one channel, its reverb can be panned in another channel, and you could have that automatically linked if you want, so that as you come over here and pan the guitar, that the reverb is linked with it. Or we could choose to just unlink the panner. And then you could have the reverb in the opposite channel. So, and this is kind of a classic like hard rock trick in the 1980s, where you had two guitar players in like a hard rock band. Each of the guitars would be panned left and right, and the reverb would be panned in the opposite channel. All right, so we had a question about VST Live on the last live stream about how to switch like between different parts of a song using a MIDI message. So let's take a look at that. We'll come over to VST Live. All right, so I'm going to just open up this particular project. Okay, so if we want to switch like from a MIDI controller between our different parts of a song, let's say verse and chorus. So here we have like our pre-count, verse, chorus, final chorus, solo, etc. are different parts of our songs. So all we would need to do is we'll just make VST Live our active window. So if we go to your devices, and let's go to actions and shortcuts to project. Here we can see that we can navigate next part and previous part using the up and down. But now we could also come over here and just map different MIDI note messages, sysx, aftertouch, program changes, MIDI controllers to do the same thing. So if you wanted to have pads that went to the next part of the song, you could just trigger the MIDI remote right from there. Okay. All right, and we had a question last time about kind of the peak meters. So let me revert this and how they weren't updating or changing. So I was kind of playing with this some more. So say as we play like our project here,
Time ago,
and this would be for like
it was 7th grade in the school parking lot.
So we go to our meter here. We see that these values are often, what these are showing is the actual max. So they don't necessarily update unless there's been a change. So if I now come over here and adjust this track to make it louder. So say if I go to my pre-gain and we boost, let's say on our master bus here.
Oh, I remember the day that we went.
So we see that these will now change based on as we add gain, but that's going to show the maximum. So it's not constantly just updating. It's showing what the maximum value was throughout the song. So unless you change it to be louder, those will remain static. Okay, and then we had a question on where are the folders for the plugin snapshots from the last live stream. So here we're just going to go, if we come over to your Mac OS, let's go to our Finder window. So we'll go to Documents, and it's going to be under the Steinberg folder. And then you'll see VST thumbnails, and now we could see the thumbnail images of plugins that have been captured. So if you want to navigate for a track picture, so let's say if we are going for a track picture of a VST plugin, so let's say, okay, I want this to be, this particular plugin path. When we come over, we could say, let's go to user. We could import. So we would just come right over here and say, let's go to our documents, to Steinberg, to VST thumbnails, and now we could just choose the thumbnail and have that as our track picture. So if you wanted to set it up that way. All right, I'm going to paste the live stream link one more time. We'll be starting here in just a minute or two. Let's go ahead and I'll add that one more time. All right, let's see if we get all right, let me just let's see if we get another quick couple questions in. We see David M joining from Liverpool. All right, so we see, is there any way to toggle the transpose plus 12 on and off so I could just transpose it while I play a flute track and it stays in its original range? And a piano roll would be really helpful. So if you do it through a logical editor or through the input transformer, you can come over here and like we could do it at the track level or project level. So if we come to a project, we could now just come over here. We can say, okay, let's, we'll select our project input transformer. And here we could say we want to transform MIDI notes. So we're going to take our notes and then we want to set the subtype, which is our pitch, and we want to add 12. So now I could play in a piano part. And then once we kind of activate this, we could say, okay, when that's turned off, or a normal octave, and I could come here and turn this on. So you could just kind of pick no transform, or if you want to come here, you could do it at the track level or at the project level. All right. Okay. All right. I know we started a little late, so we'll go a couple more minutes, answer some more questions. All right. So we see from DaVinci Girl says years of EST3 version for this plugin, but it seems that Steinberg find no solution for Mac, even Mac M4. Maybe put this on your list, Greg. So yeah, we're not going to see VST2 plugins ever work on the Mac M4. So the VST2s, you know, VST3 has been out for 17 years now. So. All right, Yassian just asked, can you show us how to generate harmonies on your song that is open AI? So if we want to generate harmonies, if we have a chord track, so I'm going to drag this guitar part to a chord track. We're going to generate the chord track. Then I could go to the vocals. I'm going to select just a little part here, and we'll go to audio to generate harmony voices. I'll do 2 harmony voices. So now as we play along, we've extracted the chords from the guitar.
It was 7th grade in the school parking lot, waiting on our yellow coach to ferry us home. You looked my way and your heart shone through. It caught my breath while you caught me too.
So you could just generate harmonies that way. All right. All right, let's see, we get a couple more questions in. All right, so we see DaVinci Girl says she doesn't need the Halotron version. She needs a VST3 version of GeForce. So I guess you could write them. See if they're going to come out with it. Pablo saying the Verve is lovely. So Yoshi Piano just saying, can I find that song somewhere? So if it's this song, it's my friend Wayne Estes. You wrote it. I don't think it's released. All right, so we see that DaVinci Girl isn't happy with MuseScore, and Dorco doesn't support the MuseScore format. So I'm not sure if it's an open format. So probably MuseScore doesn't support directly open Dorco. So I wouldn't expect that. All right. All right, so with that, I think we will see. We get one more question. Jazzy Lamel says, Greg, can you go over what is ARA and how to use it? So ARA is a way like to get from one program, like from Cubase, to do editing in a different environment. So when I come over here, if I wanted to get rid of like a guitar squeak in Spectralayers, instead of having to leave Cubase to go into a different program, we could just come right now to Spectralayers and double click. And now instead of doing my editing for that within Cubase, I could use an ARA tool to do all the editing. Okay. And we'll do just quick last question. Hey Greg, can you show me how to hear the metronome? No matter what I do, I can't hear the metronome with either playing or recording or pre-count. So if you're using the control room, make sure that you have the metronome turned on in the control room. You'll see the click level. If not, come over to your transport and you'll see metronome setup. And at this point, you could choose what audio output that the metronome is going onto, and make sure that you just hit C here. But if we don't have, if you're using a control room, make sure that you have the metronome turned on in the control room. Now with that, let's go ahead and start our Zoom. So again, I'll paste the Zoom meetup one more time. Let's go over to Zoom. And if you haven't done this, I think it's always great fun for getting to meet other people on the live stream. So let's go ahead and begin. Just quit Zoom and reopen it here. All right, we see John Barry, Mark Rabin, great to see Mark, Tim Weinheimer, Spa Dogs. We see Peter, we see Daniela, Brian, Barry, Rabin. We see Mark, Tim Weinheimer, Spa Dogs. Mark, Tim Weinheimer, Spa Dogs. Hey, Mark, good to see you. Ella.
Hello.
Hey, Tim.
Hello? Hello, someone here?
Yep, we can hear you.
Someone can hear me. Here's Wilfred. And I was in the chat, in the Cubase live stream. I forgot just to announce that I am there.
Okay.
Okay. So the quality is reasonable. I wouldn't like to make on the cam now.
Okay. Hang on just a second. We'll see if we get some more people over. All right. We see Rick joining.
No video for you, Greg?
Oh, sorry. I have it turned off. Sorry.
I see you're home now.
All right. Yeah.
Got back from NAM, okay?
Yeah. Yep. No problems. Get some more people over. Joining.
No video for you, Greg?
Oh, sorry. I have it turned off. Sorry.
I see you're home now.
All right. Yeah.
Got back from NAM, okay?
Yeah. Yep. No problems. So I think, Rick, we're hearing your audio come through there.
No video for you, Greg?
Oh, sorry. I have it turned off. Sorry.
I see you're home now.
All right. Yeah.
Got back from NAM, okay?
Yeah. Yep. No problems. So I think, Rick, we're hearing your audio come through. All right. We see Nick joining. Oh, sorry. Turned off. Sorry. I see you're home now. All right.
Ich mach nur die Lampe an. Wo
Audio.
ist denn meine Lampe hin?
We see-
Diese, hier.
All right. We'll let it go for another minute or two, then I'll stop the live stream.
Ich mach nur die Lampe an. Für Video hier. Ja. Ich mach's hier an, warte mal. Gut. Weil heute Abend ist wieder diese Livestream mit dieser Spezialiste.
All right.
Ja,
Yeah.
ich habe ein Problem und das hätte ich dann gelöst.
See Zach
Ohne,
Pope
dass du
joining.
jetzt groß gemacht. Ja, bitte. Ich mach hier an, warte mal. Moment. Weil heute Abend ist wieder diese Livestream mit dieser Spezialiste.
All right.
Ja,
Yeah.
ich habe ein Problem und das hätte ich dann gelöst.
See Zach Pope joining.
Groß gemacht. Ja, bitte. Ich mach hier an, warte mal. Moment. Weil heute Abend ist wieder diese Livestream mit dieser Spezialiste.
All right. I'll give you like one more minute, and then we'll end the live stream.
Groß Bis gemacht. Ja, bitte. Also heute Abend ist wieder diese Livestream mit diesen Spezialisten.
Okay, I'm going to end the live stream and we'll migrate over to the Zoom.
Bis gemacht. Ja, bitte.
All right, so we're